So the title of my talk is Lifestyle Interventions to Increase Longevity, and if you Google the title of this talk, you will find my post that is much longer and includes citations for all of the claims that I'm going to make. So we're going to talk about healthy lifestyle habits, but first I'm going to talk about why this talk is a complete waste of your time and you shouldn't listen to me. So you've heard this talk before. You've had your dentist tell you you're supposed to floss. You've read articles about how you're supposed to be doing exercise, and your doctor tells you you need to quit smoking. And notice my tone of voice, right? This is not a happy time. I'm supposed to be doing these things. So how do you respond? You feel guilty. So every time you think about these things, you have a negative thought. So this teaches you to avoid the thing. Your brain thinks that it's something unpleasant in your environment that you need to stay away from. That maybe if you ignore it, it'll go away. So guess how effective this is for getting you to change your behavior? Okay, so how is this any different? How is what I'm telling you today any different? I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. If you listen to this talk and take no action, that's completely fine. You can zone out through the entire thing. So if you listen to this talk and you implement one lifestyle change, this is awesome. You're totally ahead of the curve. So I'm going to tell you how awesome you are for taking steps towards improving your lifestyle. And I want to sell you on how awesome your life could be if you bought a product called Healthy Lifestyle Habits. So believe it or not, some of our recommendations are even pills that you can pop. Sorry, just a sec.
Make it so.
While you're pausing, can you repeat what the product was called?
Healthy
yes.
lifestyle habits.
I didn't hear it.
No, the product. Well, okay, so I'm the co-founder, and this is my other co-founder of Meal Squares. It's a nutritionally complete food that we are doing a crowdfunding campaign for very soon.
We've got samples over there on the table.
Yeah. Anyway, so I want to paint a picture in your mind. Envision yourself in a few decades. You've got your flying car, and you're controlling it with your mind. And many of your friends have been consigned to hover chairs, but not you. You and your friends are going to base jump today from space. It requires a strong cardiovascular system, but fortunately for you, you went to a talk a few decades ago that put you on the right path. And also the immortality pills help. Okay, so what do I want you to actually do? I want you to eat chocolate and hang out with your friends. So yeah, your mental picture of someone who's healthy is like the person who eats spinach, and then they wake up at 6 a.m. and goes jogging. This is like an admirable person, but it's not us, right? We've already been down the road of what we're supposed to do. It doesn't work. So I'm dead serious when I tell you that the first habit that I want you to instill is eating dark chocolate every day.
I'm so there.
Oh, you did it.
Not a lot, about an ounce maybe. Oh. Oh yeah, there's no slide. You're supposed to be paying attention to me. So, not a lot, about an ounce of dark chocolate. But I want you to do it every day at the same time. Set an alarm. Set a chocolate alarm. Okay? Because the most important habit that you can build in your life, the habit that impacts everything else you do, is getting better at building habits. It isn't called the 7 mandatory obligations of highly effective people. It's called the 7 habits of highly successful people. Oh my god. Because people who get things done don't get it done because they're constantly forcing themselves to do stuff through sheer willpower. That works for about 15 minutes. They've turned the most important things in their lives into habits. A habit is something you do automatically. It takes effort not to do it. So when your chocolate alarm goes off, I want you to eat your chocolate and think about how great you are for working on this habit stuff. We want to teach the primitive part of your brain that working on this stuff is awesome and it will help you survive. This might not feel like a huge step towards the healthy lifestyle that you envision. That's okay. Because we don't want any huge steps. We certainly don't want any huge leaps. How many times have you heard this story? You get excited and motivated about a lifestyle change. You read a bunch of articles on the best way to do it. You buy whatever supplies you need. You do it 3 times, and then you never do it again. Sorry, question from Matt.
I want to make a subtle distinction here that I don't know if people are getting. This is different than just eating chocolate because you feel like some chocolate.
Yes.
You're actually trying to say, like, at a certain time of day, I'm going to eat, like, something, maybe not even saying quantity, like, it has to be 1 piece, or it can't be more than half a chocolate bar, but we'll do it every day. And so, is that what you mean by instilling a habit? So, you've done something deliberately, and you've learned how to do it deliberately as opposed to just, well, I kind of feel like eating some chocolate.
Right, this is something that, ideally you do this every single day at the same time. Yeah. So you do this thing 3 times, you never think about it again. And you're relying on a highly motivated state of mind to get anything done. This might be the biggest mistake that we make, believing that we're going to be in this high motivation state at all times. It just doesn't happen. So instead, I want every single step in your journey to be small enough that you never stumble. So I'm not actually going to tell you what to do right after you've instilled your chocolate habit. Because what I want you to do, once you look forward to your daily chocolate ritual, is enjoy your chocolate while you think about which habit you want to instill next. And after you come up with a list of things you really like to do, I want you to order them from easiest to hardest. Because what I really want you to practice is getting better at instilling habits in yourself. By the way, meal scores are full of chocolate. Okay, so maybe right now you're thinking this is false advertising. I haven't given you any real interventions yet. I do in fact have 10 weird tricks to not die. Slide. And again, the citations for all of these are on, if you Google the title of the talk. Right, hang on. Questions in a moment. Actually, that's about it. So, yeah, actually, I would like to open the floor to questions because I think some feedback on this stuff is helpful. Yeah?
What's the idea behind blood donation?
So, blood donation is actually probably the most highly contentious item on that list because the studies on it have some methodological problems. But it's a case where the risks and costs are so low and the potential benefit is so high that it seems to be worth it anyway. Blood donation across 5 studies, each of about 8,000 people, decreased heart attacks for men by about 85 to 90%. So there might be some reverse causation going on here where healthier people donate blood more. There have been various estimates as to the effect size of this bias in the sampling, but it doesn't look like it's large enough to swamp the benefit. So going and donating blood once a year is a very easy, low-cost thing to do. Yes?
Like, over how long a period of time, like, what are the details of the statistic? Like, I donated blood once, my risk is 85% less, or I donated
Right, over various
once a
periods,
month,
like
or
10 to 30 years, tracking people.
But it's only for men.
Yes.
Only for men, men have done it for 10 years, or men who have done it for 5 years, or?
Right, so the studies vary from anywhere from like a 10-year follow-up to a 30-year follow-up.
Of how many times per year?
Oh, okay, so people who do it multiple times a year seem to have worse health outcomes. Once every 2 years showed benefit. Once a year is very safe. It's fairly easy to get this right because if you donate too much, you'll start having problems because your iron in your blood will be too low. Yeah.
Romeo, in addition to there being a self-selection factor among the people who give blood, might it also be a factor that you enjoy a sense of well-being from giving as a result of giving blood, which has beneficial health benefits?
Certainly, but the placebo effect is still in effect. This is awesome. Like, go ahead and take advantage of the placebo effect to the maximum extent possible.
How do you do the placebo with that?
Oh, no, I'm saying like if it's not actually related to the underlying, if it's not actually causally related to the underlying giving of blood, that's still totally fine. Go ahead and go get the benefits from it.
Yes, yes.
And these benefits didn't appear in women, right? And the theory is that women are already giving blood?
Yes. Yes.
In the back, we can't read the list.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, so the number one intervention is giving any of your friends who smoke an e-cigarette. For about $10, and there's links to this in the post where you can get these very cheap. For the cost of about $10, you can add 14 years of someone's life on average. E-cigarettes have an extremely high success rate in getting people to quit smoking compared to every single other intervention. The second one, pay attention to the road when you're in your car. Getting distracted kills you. Constant vigilance when dealing with the medical world. Some of you might have seen a recent study that came out indicating that rates of medical errors, avoidable medical errors, were much, much higher than previously assumed. And it might be the second leading cause of death in the United States. So, you know, things like triple checking dangerous prescriptions. If you don't know if a prescription is dangerous, it probably is. Ask your doctor if they've washed their hands. This is still a major problem, unfortunately. So absolutely any exercise is better than none. Literally 15 minutes of exercise a week has shown dramatic benefits in quality and quantity of life. Blood donation we went over. Buy a blood pressure monitor. Lots of people have high blood pressure and don't realize it. You can get a blood pressure monitor for 30 bucks on Amazon. And there's steps you can take if you do have high blood pressure. Many of which are just pills that have fairly robust meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials supporting them. I myself had great success lowering my average blood pressure from, systolic blood pressure from 140s to the 120, which is where you want to be with various supplements. Eat fish, nuts, eggs, fruit, and chocolate. These are, oh, and don't eat processed meat. I should have had that on there. These are the highest level features of a diet that predict health and longevity. There's lots of minutia in diet, but hit the big things first and worry about the minutia later. Work towards a healthy weight. Pretty much everything gets worse when like BMI exceeds 27-ish. So work on that. That's a complicated issue too. Figure out stress and sleep problems and fix them. These are often very hard to fix. People will struggle with them and they get demoralized and stop working on it. But they're absolutely worth it for quality of life, not just quantity. Oh, and floss, and see a dentist. Most people still don't floss. It's, oh, I probably should have oh well. So yeah, more questions?
So obviously, possibly seeing a dentist helps with the health of your teeth, but how does that help with life?
So the causal mechanism isn't really understood, but the relative risk of people who don't floss is like 20% higher than people who do. So yeah, you're seeing, that's a very large effect size. You're much more likely to die not flossing than you are flossing.
Do they compare toothpicks and flossing?
Yeah, so all...
Toothpicks don't work.
Huh, they
I was reading
don't?
a study about this last night. They don't work at all.
No, not toothpicks. Oh, you said toothpicks? Okay, yeah, toothpicks are not good. I thought you were talking about the paste style of floss, which are good. Yes?
I think what I heard in regards to that is that if you don't brush your teeth properly, don't floss, and all of the bacteria in your mouth, food and all that stuff causes, and of course any sort of decay and gum problems, especially gum issues, will definitely take years off your life.
Well, yeah, one of the big things is that losing teeth opens you up to much greater infection risk.
On the stress thing, is it, I'm assuming it's still all right to have intermittent periods of high stress, but it's the low level stress continuing that's bad for you. Is that right? Is there a little more?
So, yeah, what's going on with stress is that it's not so much the quantity of stress in people's lives, because people who have high stress jobs don't necessarily live any shorter. It's more that they've discovered that how people respond to stress, the mental patterns that they have, significantly affects their well-being. And there's techniques you can use to fix this. I mean, there's meditation and various other things that have large effect sizes on this. Again, there's a bunch of material on the large post.
Search on Google for lifestyle interventions to increase longevity, and you can read a long essay with lots of citations.
So yeah, again, you Google the title of this talk, you will find a large post with lots of citations backing up everything that I've said, and additional recommendations for how to implement some of them.
You should read the title.
Lifestyle interventions to increase longevity.
So
Yeah.
do you do all these
much. I think I've hit about, I'm at about 75 to 80% right now. But this has been over the course of a couple of years that I've improved on these things. So one of the things that I forgot to include, I don't have like the story right in front of me, was just I wanted to talk a little bit about how the reason that I'm telling all this stuff about habits is that I've become dramatically more effective at instilling habits in myself. And this has been a bigger improvement for me than hundreds of other self-help techniques. Because you can't institute any of those other self-help techniques if you can't actually instill habits in yourself.
What is one benefit you found?
Okay, so like they're so dramatic that it's really hard for me to quantify them. I don't even relate to the person that I used to be. Especially with things like sleep and stress, I'm so much more productive and happy, and it's a ridiculous change.
So I'm curious about your process of habit forming. Right? You talked a little bit about this in the beginning, where you said if you want to form a habit, like you can eat chocolate, and chocolate, takes your brain and is saying, good job, you did something good for your body, and then you can form a habit of building eating chocolate. But for the other things where there isn't such a short-circuited reward, how do you build habits that? And what is your methodology for building habits? Like if you were to say, if you were to try to get us to build one habit, right? Like what would be the, what would the things we want to do in a week, 2 weeks time frame be that you think would be good?
So what you want to be doing is focusing on one thing at a time. Trying to instill 10 habits at once just does not work for most people. So yeah, just basically instill the habit of eating chocolate first, and then build from there. So if you come up with a list of habits that you'd like to do, and like this is picking a random intervention on this list, for example, whichever one seems easiest to you, right? Whatever is closest to you, and spending that time when you're sitting there at your computer eating your chocolate. Like, how can I tackle this, right? How have I failed in the past? And there are specific techniques by people who study what is effective in habit building. And there are links to those resources in the post.
Where'd you get this list of interventions from?
So this was generated by me. I use CDC mortality statistics to figure out what the highest amount of deaths were being caused by in each age bracket. And the cutoff level for like whether or not intervention was worth it was fairly arbitrary because the list starts to balloon at a certain point, right, when you get to the rarer things. So this stuff is covering probably what kills about 80% of people.
Would you contemplate an 11th habit of, if you have a chronic disease, actually stick to whatever your treatment plan is?
Yes, definitely. So all of this stuff is not, targeted. I never give a disclaimer. It's probably not good. All of this stuff is targeted if you already have, fairly robust health. If you have a chronic disease, then that's going to be high priority. On the other hand, there's also things that have across the board applicability, yes, or improvements. So yeah.
I'm just curious, as I missed it, the blood donation for men, I just donated blood, so what was the thing? How often is that?
I say once a year. It's actually not super clear what the exact donation frequency is, but once a year seems to be well within the bounds of what is healthy.
Just asked all those questions. I was over at Cedars-Sinai. It's actually more frequent than you think, and they said to me that 2% of the population in Los Angeles on a regular basis give blood. They are still in desperate need of blood. It's actually it's only like 52 hours. You can donate again in a very short period of time.
This is probably not good for you. People who donate a lot of blood all the time seem to have much higher rates of blood lymphomas.
So maybe you do it well, so 2 or 3 times a year maybe, but it depends. There's platelets and there's regular giving a pint of blood. So there's different ways of doing it.
Sure, yeah, I'm advocating the super selfish version up here where it's purely based on like what benefit you're getting. But yeah, no, if you are trying to help people, yes, more is better. The biggest impact on my sleep was orange goggles. It turns out that our endogenous melatonin production, which melatonin is the hormone that controls our circadian rhythms, is destroyed by high frequency light, like blue lights. And $8 orange goggles from Amazon blocks the blue light and makes me get sleepy. I used to have chronic insomnia, and I started using orange goggles, and now my sleep schedule is fine. Very frustrating that I spent like, years and years with a horrible sleep cycle, and it was this simple thing all along.
Do you
What time do you put them on?
Wait, what?
What time do you put them on?
Oh, I put them on at 10 in order to get sleepy around 1:30, but like it varies from person to person.
I got fish covered, but how do I easily eat nuts, eggs, fruits, and chocolate?
Put them in your mouth, and then you want to move this thing up and down. What?
Plug.
So this is our product, meals. We've got the samples over there. They've got all of that good stuff except for fish.
Oh.
Yeah, so we created a nutritionally complete food because supplements have a lot of problems with them, where some of them are actually deleterious to our health. And even the ones that aren't absorbed very well often. So we wanted to make something based on whole foods that had a high bioavailability that people could eat as a default meal and then be good, not to worry about it anymore.
What's the carb fat protein ratio on those?
40-40-20 carbohydrate, fat, protein.
You plan to merchandise or anything for so you can like buy it made already, freeze it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like our goal is to have it basically be like a Cliff Bar you pick up in the store, and it's super easy and convenient. What? Yeah. Thank you. So thank you all for showing up for my talk. Hopefully you all start eating chocolate. And I highly encourage you to go check out the post and check out mealsquares.com as well if you're interested in, food.